Today we'll be feeder fishing on the river in hope of a few chub. Not only is chub fishing extremely exciting, it can be really rewarding because you've got to move swims and try and locate those fish. River fishing is exciting for many reasons. You don't know what fish you're going to hook next and what size it could be in the river. It could be a small roach or it could be a record chub. You just never know what's around the corner. River fishing can be dangerous and it's important to stay safe when walking the bank. I find it useful to look at the gov.uk website where you can check the water levels on a particular stretch of river. I've found if the water levels are dropping consistently over a few days, this is the best time to go chub fishing. Fish like chub love to hang around snags, whether that's fallen trees, reeds, anywhere where they feel safe. This is always a great area to start. Another area to try is the edge of the crease. This is where the main flow and the slack part of water meet. Chub often sit here waiting for any food to come off of the main flow. I think chub are a greedy fish and often eat anything that's in front of them, which is why if I'm not getting any indications on the feeder tip, I'll move to the next swim. We've been in that first swim for about 20 odd minutes now, but no joy. So we're going to nip downstream and see if we can find a few more swims and then hop back in here later on. A maximum of 20 minutes is enough time to see if there's any fish in front of you. This will also keep you active and warm during the cooler months. So what do you need to go chub fishing? Your rod doesn't need to be expensive. And it doesn't matter if the rod's named cart feeder or method feeder, it needs to be strong because even the small chub can pull your arm off. You'll see that I'm fishing with an 11-foot method feeder rod today, which is more than up to the job for the species we might encounter, like chub and maybe a bream. Your rod will ideally need to be 10 to 12 foot in length, depending on the river that you're fishing. Some riverbanks, there's no margin vegetation, which means you'll be able to fish with a smaller rod, like a 10 foot. If the bank you're fishing has vegetation like snags and overhanging trees, a longer rod like a 12-foot rod will be easier when trying to play those fish close in. There are many different feeder tips you can use when feeder fishing. Today we have gone with a 3-ounce glass feeder tip, as this is strong enough for the rod not to be hooped over, but light enough so you can see small indications on the feeder tip. When river fishing, you don't know what you're going to hook into next, which rolls us over nicely to the main line. We're going to fish 6-pound main line today, and it gives me confidence if we do hook into a big fish, it isn't going to let me down. So it's going to be my last cast in this swim, and I've just put this one into the main flow because you never know, the fish might have just backed off and are just sitting in that main current. Yeah. Oh, that's a first bite. Not the biggest fish in the world, but it is our first fish of the session and hopefully more to come. Moving on to hook length. Now this is one of the most important things to get right for fish care. Having a hook length with a slightly lighter breaking strain than your main line helps massively if you hook into a snag on the bottom of the river. If you need to pull for a break, it will be the hook length that snaps first and you'll get all of your tackle back. But if your hook length is stronger than your main line, then your main line will break first and you'll lose absolutely everything. Not only can it become expensive, but it can potentially put fish at risk, which is something that we need to avoid. 2 items that is vital to bring with you when river fishing is a disgorger and an unhooking mat. This keeps fish safe on the bank. The beauty of river fishing is you're travelling light and you don't need to bring much with you. All I've got with me today is my rucksack with all my tackle bits in it, a rod, a landing net and a long bank stick. Because we're roving around, I've not brought a chair because we're only in one swim for around 20 minutes. And it's an extra thing to carry and I don't want that. As I've said before, chub fight extremely hard and you need a pattern of hook that is strong enough to land them. We've gone with a B9 8.3 in a size 10. This is a wide gape hook, which is perfect for baits like bread and cheese paste, where you're wrapping the baits around the hook, so the bait should stay on for longer. This is how I wrap cheese paste. It's not overly complicated, but if you don't get it right, it might pull out of the cheese paste as the feeder's hitting the water, and then you could be sat there for 10 minutes without a bait on your hook, which you will never know about. First thing you need to do is pick a small bit out, roughly the size of a 50-pence piece, and then flatten the cheese paste, lay your hook in, and just wrap around the eye of the hook and just below, like that. If you find yourself missing a few bites, you can hook the cheese paste slightly differently by laying it back in the middle, wrapping it over, but just leaving the hook point showing. This could give you the edge you need to hook that fish. When river fishing, it's important to bring feeders in a variety of weights to ensure that you can hold bottom. If your feeder is too light, then it can roll along the bottom into a snag. And trust me, that is the last thing that you want. Another thing that I like about river fishing is the bait. It doesn't have to be expensive. I have blended up half a loaf of bread, which can be pushed through the cage feeder. I've brought a few slices of bread for hook bait and some leftover cheese that was in the fridge over Christmas that I've made into a cheese paste. One thing that I really like about cheese paste fishing is if you don't use all of it in a session, you can put it back in the freezer at home and it's almost like fine wine. The older it is, the better it is. When casting, it's important to feel the feeder down until it hits the bottom. So we've just cast out and peeled some line off the spool so it creates a bow in the line. Having a bow in the line will help reduce pressure on the feeder and stop the feeder being dragged downstream. Now, as you can see, the feeder, it is moving the feeder tip at the minute and it's just settling on the bottom. So now I can see that the feeder's on the bottom, it's holding. So any movement on the feeder tip from this moment onwards, it could be a bite. This is an area where I used to struggle with, but since being shown, it all makes sense to me now. You'll notice when you're feeder fishing on rivers that your tip is never still. It's constantly tapping away in the flow. And to distinguish whether it's a bite or not, normally it's a tap and a drop back. When the feeder tip goes straight, that means that the fish has picked up the hook and lifted the feeder off the bottom of the river. This is a bite. Yep. Yeah. That's it for today. We've had a few nice chub on a cold winter's day. Now let's get back home. I think most of us, when we go fishing, we put way too much pressure on ourselves. The main thing is enjoying your fishing. That's the most important part.